Welcome to Complete Edition, the podcast between a PlayStation Trophy Hunter and an Xbox Achievement Hunter. This is episode 7. I'm your host, Compulsive Nerd, or Cole, and I am joined by my professional co-host, AJ. It's been a hell of a week, AJ. How have you been?
I've been doing well. Great to be here, as always. I was gaming quite a lot the first half of the week, and I've been watching those Gamescom shows, and the ESL Pro League started and Counter-Strike, so I've been following that.
Nice.
And it's been good. You know, at the Gamescom show, they announced that limited edition Xbox and
Yes.
the controller, and I was like on the fence about if I wanted the console or not. And like that hesitation meant that I like lost the opportunity. Also, the Microsoft website for the UK is terrible. Like it redirects you to the US one when you click pre-order, and you have to like go back. It was a mess. So I didn't manage to get one. But I really like that console and the controller. So and right now they're going for like over $1,000 on eBay
I
and
figured.
stuff because of course, yeah, like the console already, like you can't get the regular console easily, so yeah, it's like even worse for this limited edition one.
That's
So that
that's it to be expected. I was expecting all of this. As soon as I saw that console, I rolled my eyes because I'm not a Halo person yet, and like I just was like, man, they're just capitalizing on this stuff. And I've never been one to be into the limited edition consoles or the controllers.
Yeah, I mean, for that, to give you like a really quick, I guess, history lesson on it, I think since almost every Xbox, if not every I think every Xbox, I don't know if the Xbox One did, it might have done. Pretty much every Xbox has had like a Halo version, so it was basically like everyone was expecting it and also asking for it. I know I saw it a lot of the time on like Xbox podcasts and social media. Everyone like they've got to do an Xbox like Halo limited edition version of the Xbox because they've done it for the 360 and for the original Xbox. So everyone in the community kind of wanted it. And I didn't think they'd be able to because of the fact that they're producing every console they can, right? Like their orders are probably like backed up for months and the chip shortage is still a big problem. So I figured like they'd maybe not be able to, like it might disrupt the supply chains in some way. Like it would still be a bit too early, I guess, for it. I know that, of course, right? Like it's the same hardware. It's not like the limited edition Xbox has like a different chip in it or anything.
Right.
I understand that, but in terms of like how they transport it from like manufacturing and like all the like the plates that they put on it and the external like stuff around the SoC and stuff, I just figured like, oh, they probably already had to plan this stuff so far in advance that they can't change it now because there's still no supply that's opened up. But so it was a nice surprise for me. But
Absolutely.
yeah, I definitely get that. I mean, it is a bit awkward the fact that you can't even get the regular one. And it's like, here's the limited edition one. It's like the regular console's already limited edition at this point. What it feels like.
That's so true. Yeah, I mean, I've been tuning in on that Gamescom stuff too. I generally have not ever been one to watch it, but Kyle Bossman was hosting, and I was like, oh, I kind of want to see Kyle Bossman because like he left Easy A, and I used to love that channel, and I mean, I still do, but just haven't been as into it after he left. But I was like, all right, I'll watch this event, and then with the hype of Discord, I've just been like, this is fun. Like it's fun to watch this event with people, and like just tuning in. I haven't watched any of the CS:GO stuff. I'm not big on that. I played it a little bit with my friend back in the day, but that's about my extent of experience with that.
Yeah, Jeff's normally Gamescom is pretty, like the way people talk about it is, I've never been, but normally it's like compared to E3, it's better as like a show that you go to in person to like play stuff on like the floor, but it's worse as a show in terms of like watching it, like in terms of the conferences are usually a lot worse and like nothing to write home about. That's the perception I've got of it. But I thought this year the show that Jeff did was probably the best I can remember at Gamescom. Like it still wasn't like E3, but it was a lot closer than it's ever been from what I can remember. So yeah, I was pretty happy with that.
I was too. And I actually think I had the opposite of your gaming experience this week because I had a lot more gaming towards the end of the week and less towards the beginning of the week. Like I waited for Ghost of Tsushima to come out the other night, and I played that, and then I really enjoyed it. And I'm not done. I'm not even close to done. I uploaded my PS4 save to my PS5, and it auto popped platinum for me. A lot of people are gonna look down on that, but I actually just wanted to play the DLC because I've played the game 2 times already, like this year, and I'm just like, I don't think I need to play it again. And I picked up right where I left off, and I've been ticking away at the DLC, but I think I'm gonna have to double up because the trophies and the completion percentage on PS4 is different than PS5, so I'm gonna have to go back to PS4 to complete the DLC again, which I'm not mad about. Because on the backwards compatibility end, like I watched a Digital Foundry breakdown, it's like so unnoticeable. Like the backwards, I pretty much already had the director's cut with the backwards compatibility update, because there's a couple of textures that are a little bit more sharp, but it still runs 4K 60. I was like, well, I don't know why I didn't just play it on the PS4 and then just upload the PS4 version on the PS5 and then upload the save and get all the trophies at once that way, but I'm going to go ahead and double up. I enjoy the game enough to enjoy the combat loop. I'll just skip cutscenes and things like that probably on the PS4 version. But that's something that's coming up that I'm probably going to do. And then the thing that took most of my time this week, dude, and I'm so excited to talk about it because it's like, I can't believe it happened. But, you know, I've been talking about Persona 4 Golden for so long, and I'm so close to the platinum. And I can taste it. I got one of the trophies that I thought I was totally going to miss. It's the 250 unique navigation lines from one of the characters. So when you go into a battle, she'll be like, hey, this is that enemy's weakness. And then she has like a bunch of different lines, and it's kind of RNG. And it popped on my first playthrough on the very last dungeon. And I completed the game. I'm up to 72% on the trophies. I think I have like 5 trophies left. I still have to play through the whole game again, which I'm just fast forwarding through, and I'm like halfway through. And I'm dominating the dungeons because on New Game Plus, I kept some of my personas. I'm using a persona that's like level 73 or something like that, and I'm taking down enemies that are like level 20. So it's literally like one hit kill, get out of battle, go, go, go. And it's just like launching my levels into the air. I'm destroying the game, and I'm going to get the platinum. That was the only trophy, the navigation trophy that I was talking about was the one that I thought was going to hold me back. And now that I have it, it's like, this is mine, dude. The platinum is mine. It's so awesome. So I've been grinding at that. That's actually what I was doing before the podcast. I laid down because I was kind of tired, but then I just knocked out a couple more days on Persona, and that's what I was doing. And then the last thing that I played was 12 minutes, and I thoroughly enjoyed the game. I got very frustrated at several parts, but I felt kind of connected to the main character in that way, because whenever I'd skip dialogue, you know, he'd be like, not right now.
They plan for it, which is quite clever. How
it was
like
so
like
good.
like it like you. So with that, we're going to talk more about the game later. I've also been playing it, but one thing I like about that aspect is your character retains all the knowledge from the loops. So it's not like everything else is resetting, and he's resetting in like a physical sense, but he's not resetting in like a mental sense. Like he knows everything, and he's like felt the pain of the previous cycle and all of that, so it's like he's the same person going through it, and like he's aware of everything. I think that's a really cool aspect of that.
It is, because that's how I felt connected, is like he was like, damn, like, not again, and I'm like, yeah, not again. Like he's like right there with me, and I would be like skipping the conversation, and his wife would be like rude, and I'm like, just get out of the way, I'm trying to figure things out. Okay. And then like it was really involved that way. I hit a wall a couple times, and I think that's where people either like say yep or nope on the game. They're like, they hit a wall, and instead of trying different things, or they try enough different things and nothing happens for them, they're like, I'm done. This game, I hate it. I don't want to play it anymore. But if you can push past that, it's very rewarding. And I did push past it, and I beat it. I will tell you when we get into the spoilers and stuff. I'll tell you which ending I got first.
Yeah. We'll talk about the
later.
Yeah, so what I've been playing in terms of this week, I finally finished Hades, which I'm happy about.
Yeah.
I talked a ton about the game before, so I don't want to go back over anything, but The final prophecy achievement for me was really annoying, and for some people it's a lot easier. It's like totally random when you get the dialogue. And so the NPC I needed, he kept giving me the wrong dialogue, and you only get one set of dialogue per run, so you have to do an entirely new run before they'll talk to you about anything else again. And usually they only talk to you for like one line or like two lines of dialogue or two text boxes. So you barely get anywhere per run, especially if you consider a run might be like from anywhere from like 15 to like 40 minutes. So
Tedious.
what I had to do was I'd already got all of the keepsakes leveled up to level 3, which for some people is their last achievement. But what I ended up doing was I'd go talk to someone, then go into a run and then die on the first room, and then go talk to the person again and then go into a run and die on the first room over and over again. And even with doing that, it took about 5 hours to get to the dialogue that I wanted, which, well, to get to the dialogue that I wanted and then to complete the prophecy as well. Because what's even more annoying is it's the fact that, like, he won't even talk to you about the thing that you have to go do in the game until that point. So even when you get the right dialogue, you're not done. You have to then go into the game and actually do essentially the quest. So that took about 6 hours, and I was so done with the game at that point that it was really annoying. And if I'd have played each run properly, like if I didn't look up how to get this prophecy and I didn't go for it as an achievement, it probably would have added about 20 to 30 hours to the playtime of the game.
Wow.
So the fact that it's so grindy and random is really disappointing. Like it's a pretty bad dialogue system and a pretty bad quest system. So it's really unfortunate because I still really like the game. So it's kind of sad that like the worst part of it is the end of the achievement hunt. Like that's where it falls flat. That's just it's just annoying. But yeah, great game despite that, of course. Everything I've said before,
Right.
I still stand by. The completion took around 55 hours, but you could probably you could probably add like 20 or 30, or you could probably take away about 10, depending on what happens and what the game gives you.
Luck.
And the fact that that's independent of the skill aspect of the game is quite annoying. So great game, not perfect in terms of either as like a game or in terms of a completion. And then the next game I completed was 12 minutes, as we've mentioned. The game has only 12 achievements, which is quite cool, and you can follow a guide for them. It's pretty easy. I also quite like the game a lot. And Maka has a full game walkthrough up right now. Some other people do as well, and it takes less than 2 hours to get the full 1,000 if you go purely for the achievements. Although I wouldn't really recommend that with this game, because I think you want to play it without knowing all the solutions, or at least you want to. I think there's two ways to get the most out of the game, and I think either it's to play it yourself, ideally with other people, I think, and like experience it blind, or watch a streamer or a personality you like play it and see like their chat, like all trying to solve it and you trying to solve it and them reacting. Like it's a really good game in both of those contexts, I think. So if you go in and just follow a guide and then like that's your entire experience of the game, I think you're kind of robbing yourself a little, and you might not understand it or enjoy it anywhere near as much.
I agree with you on all of this. I think that playing it with someone is really fun to just like chat about like kind of what's going on, like how like trying to do this differently or planning, like as soon as it restarts it's like, hey, oh, let's try this time, and like trying to do that. And it would be really fun to do it with a chat too. The game has a lot of really cool references in it too, like minor spoilers, but in the hallway outside of the apartment you can look out the peephole and you'll see that it has like the carpet that The Shining has. And I'm like, that's fucking cool. Like, and I've heard there's a lot more horror movie references that are subtle, but I don't really like horror movies that much, so I didn't notice them. But I've been told by somebody else who played it that there are a ton. There are a ton. So I think that's really cool.
Yeah, it's good. Yeah, and then the third game I've only played about an hour of this, so I don't have many opinions on it. I got given a early copy of Psychonauts 2, and I was really enjoying it. I don't know why I stopped. I think I just got burned out on games, because it's like they're releasing quite quickly and close together, and it's just a lot to take in. And sometimes I feel like, you need that time to kind of reset and recalibrate
Oh,
yourself sometimes,
yes.
especially after like a heavy experience like 12 minutes or even Hades in terms of the gameplay. That sometimes you just need that time. You can't just like go straight in. So that's sort of how I feel, but I really want to go back to it and do more in that game. I'm not sure if I'm going to go to my backlog first. I know there's a decent amount of guides out for Psychonauts 2, but I want to wait until there's a few more. I think there's some missable achievements in that game, and I don't want to have to replay multiple times if I can avoid it. But I'm enjoying it. It's good. I don't know if it's just good or if it's great or if it's amazing or if it's the best thing ever. I mean, it's
Right.
probably not that, but
Have you played the
but I know
first?
it's at least good. No, I haven't. But there's a when you load into the game, they have a previously on Psychonauts thing where it tells you everything that happened in the first game and in the because they had a VR game called The Rhombus of Ruin as
Whoa.
well, and it tells you everything that happened in those games just before you start and catches you up. But the game definitely Psychonauts 2 definitely starts right after Psychonauts 1 and kind of puts you in at the deep end in terms of it's like Psychonauts 1 and the Rhombus of Ruin. It's like both of those just ended and then you're like right there. So that's quite cool.
That makes
I
me
enjoy that.
that makes me want to go back and play them before I even attempt that game because I think that's really cool, and I'll be okay with watching the recap because my brain is so short term that it would be like, oh, I forgot that happened. So,
Yeah.
I mean, like, I do love games like that.
Yeah, I always like that because a lot of games, probably most games, have a really slow start in terms of even sequels. They're just like because and it makes sense, they have to give you tutorials, and the easiest level of the game is always the first level, or hopefully is the first level. So most games automatically start quite slowly, but this game having it like you're like still in the thick of the action from the previous game is quite cool. I find that a lot more engaging than a total reset, but it depends on the story they're trying to tell. So that's what I've been playing. I kind of wish I had more to say about Psychonauts 2, but I saw it reviewed really well. I'm glad that Double Fine got to like. I'm happy for them that the reception is positive because this game, it's like the first game came out 16 years ago and fans crowdfunded a sequel. So if this game sucked, like that would be pretty bad, right?
It'd be another tale, just like
It's so
Shenmue 3 and many others
yeah,
that happened on Kickstarter, just coming up and then just flopping hard. It's like you
yeah,
ask
the
for it and it doesn't pay off, and this is really awesome that it has a story where it is paying off for people who love the series.
yeah, the original is so loved by people that people are like, I'll pay out of my own pocket for a sequel, like I'll fund the sequel, and then that studio as well, Double Fine, they were initially with, so they got crowdfunded, and then they partnered with Starbreeze, who gave them some extra money and support, and were going to publish the game. And then Starbreeze got into like real financial trouble and like went under basically. I don't know if they're still technically around, but you can read into that like they got wrecked. So then Double Fine are like stuck with no money again. They're out of money again, and then Microsoft comes in and buys them. But then that might be a shakeup that they have to react to. So the game was in trouble in terms of publishing and could have potentially ended up in development hell. But it seems that Double Fine were they knew what they were doing. They took their time. They got to put the level of polish and care into the game. They didn't they didn't. It wasn't like there's a worry that because of the crowdfunding money running out or the Starbreeze support ending, like you could almost imagine the game you get like 2/3 of the way through and then there's suddenly like a huge drop in quality, but that doesn't seem to be the case according to reviewers. And they added boss fights back into the game after Microsoft supported them, so it's a really good story for that studio and for Xbox as well to some extent that the game turned out as it did. So I'm happy for them on that level, certainly. But
I
I
would say
can't,
the
I
game
can't.
industry needed this. Like, game industry has been struggling lately with bad stories and bad press, and this is finally like a nice little story that finally popped up out of the gaming industry.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Them being able to take their time with it as well probably helped quite a bit. So
Yeah. And I want to mention one
Good
more
for
game
them.
that I played. I played just for a bit because I had it on my Xbox already and I was waiting for 12 minutes to download and probably played it for 20 to 30 minutes. But River City Girls, I'm going to play that game. It's awesome. It's really cool. Have you played that?
I've heard good things. It's like a beat 'em up game, right?
That's right, and I love beat 'em ups. I'm waiting for the Ninja Turtle Shredder's Revenge game. Probably gonna play that with my sister. We played it when we were kids. We played Turtles in Time when we were kids, and this is supposedly a sequel. So I'm like, let's go. That's super exciting. I also want to play Streets of Rage 4, but backlog is thick, dude.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I'm like, yeah, my next game, I'm like, do I continue with Psychonauts or do I go back into Yakuza? And it's like Yakuza's it's gonna take so much time, but I think I'm around ready to return to that series. So it's
Ooh,
exciting times ahead.
that is exciting times. It's gonna be a long one. Maybe I'll jump in when you do, or I'll think about it. There's a lot of games coming out, and I don't know what to do. Sometimes it's okay not to like be part of the hype train and just play what you want, and that keeps your motivation for gaming or your passion for gaming going, rather than just trying to stay with the zeitgeist. And that's generally what I do. I mean, look at me. I'm playing Persona 4 Golden. I chose it over playing the new Iki Island DLC because it's what I wanted to play really badly, and that's how it goes. All
Yeah,
right.
for me, I think it's pretty much like the rapid releases of games is sort of over for me for September. September, I'm interested in Deathloop, but if there's no way to play it and unlock achievements on Xbox, I'll probably just wait for it to come out on Xbox or Windows on PC. I don't know. I'll consider buying it on Steam definitely, but I'll probably wait on that, I assume. So that would have been the big release for September for me. So I think I've got like a 1 month window where it's like I can do whatever in terms of backlog and not have to worry, which is nice.
Dude, I actually feel you 100% on that. You know, like we talked about it recently. I don't remember what game it was, but waiting for it to come to PlayStation. And I feel the same way about 12 minutes. Like, I did achievement hunt a little bit because those achievements on there, they don't pop like naturally. There's only 12, and you really have to go out of your way to get them. And
Yeah,
doing that, like, all of them are rare. Like it was really fun to hear the rare achievement pop and like do that, but I just couldn't bring myself to do the whole entire thing. But I'll tell you, if it comes to PlayStation, I'm going to platinum it with Macca's guide. Like that
yeah,
is just I will do it, but I just couldn't. I just don't care as much on Xbox, like you said. If there's a game that comes out on any other platforms that's not Xbox, then it's like you'll wait for it to come to Xbox so that you can get those
yeah,
achievements. And I'll do the same thing with 12 minutes. I played it. I was part of the zeitgeist, but I also want to get the platinum trophy. And oh shit, dude, I forgot to tell you this. Sorry. Like we were just talking about the tedium last weekend, and it's the free PlayStation Plus game this month. So I could go platinum that for, well, not
yeah.
for
You
free,
could
but like,
you could play it. It'll take you only like 3 hours, so it may be worth it.
yeah, see, like, not bad.
Yeah.
Oh, there's also another free game too. A game that I actually was about to buy because it's a game that's on my backlog and I really want to play it. It's called The Return of Obra Dinn, and it's free on PlayStation Plus. And I'm like, fuck yeah, two platinums for the.
That game is amazing. That
I've
game's so
heard.
good.
I'm so excited, dude. I'm so excited.
It kind of, I mean, it kind of reminds me of 12 minutes in a way because it's like a unique indie game where it's like a small scale, like you're stuck in like a small place, like solving a mystery.
Yes.
But yeah, that game is fantastic as well.
All right. Well, I guess we'll just transition right over to the topic on the table, which is actually a write-in from Matt Damon on one of the Discords that we're a part of.
The
And
Matt Damon?
the Matt Damon, dude, I can't believe it. The famous Matt Damon is a trophy hunter. It's crazy. He asked if difficulty doesn't matter for the trophy slash achievements if we play on the lowest difficulty to get them. And I was actually really curious of this for you because I don't know what your answer is going to be. But for me, the way that it is like I will lower the difficulty almost all the way. I actually don't go generally all the way to like the easiest where you like can't die, but I will do like the one above that because I don't have anything to prove. Like, I have trophies and achievements on games that are very fucking hard, and it shows I can do it. Like, I can. Evil Within's a great example. Like, they require hard difficulty playthroughs, they require hard difficulty achievements and trophies, and I've done it. And so there's nothing for me to prove. And so whenever I see something that's like, oh, you have to kill 3 enemies while on fire in Assassin's Creed, I'm like, well, you know what? I'm not going to do it on hard where I die in 2 seconds. I'm going to lower that shit and burn for a while I'm killing enemies, you know? Like, it's just how I tend to do it, because again, I don't have anything to prove because I've already gotten the trophies and achievements that I needed. And sometimes for the completion rate, I just downright don't care, and I want the completion, and I will glitch my way through. I will do what it takes to get the fucking completion. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I get that. I mean, it's a tough question in some ways because I think it's difficult to talk about like all games, right, as just like a universal philosophy on them, I suppose, in terms of how you approach them. I think so. I guess the first part of my rationale in terms of games is that there are some games where I think if you play on the easiest difficulty, you aren't forced to engage with the game's systems in terms of gameplay. Like if you play Doom or Doom Eternal on easy, you kind of don't have to play it like the way that you're supposed to play Doom to get through the game, which to me kind of robs you of or has the potential to rob you of the experience. Because of course you could always play a game on easy, and the way you play, you might play it as though you could handle it on Nightmare and on hard. Like, there's nothing stopping you from still playing it amazingly, even if you're playing it on easy. So it won't necessarily always rob you of that, but I do believe that easier difficulties sometimes can make experiences worse, I guess. There's other times where the hardest difficulty is just, like, pure bullshit, and then, like, fuck it, there's nothing to gain from it. But I will usually, if I'm playing a game and it's just a generic game that I'm playing and I'm going to get the completion, I will usually play the game on hard. So if there's 4 difficulties, I'll play it on the third hardest one. On the third one that's the second hardest, I guess. Not the third hardest. So, you know, easy, normal, hard, extreme, I'll play on hard.
Right.
Easy, normal, hard, I'll play on hard. So that's usually where I'll be. If there's a game where I'm like not that invested in it, I'm not really like looking forward to it, and I don't really care about the game, maybe the game doesn't have great reviews and I've looked at it and it looks like it sucks, or getting the achievements looks like it sucks, then if I still want to play it, then I'll probably want to get through it quite quickly and play it on easy. I'd say it's kind of related, but the worst thing about difficulty in terms of achievements is probably when there's those games that have difficulty achievements, but the later difficulties only unlock when you beat the game on lower difficulties. And sometimes this isn't too bad if it happens once, but I think there's a few games where like the game will have like 5 difficulties. I know Devil May Cry has tons of difficulties.
Resident Evil.
And you have to beat the game on normal to unlock hard, and then you have to beat the game on hard to unlock extreme, and then you have to beat the game on like extreme to unlock like the like
deadly or whatever the fuck.
Yeah, thing.
Fatal. And
I hate that in games because it stops you from being able to play on what difficulty you want and forces you to play the game more times. So that's probably the worst thing.
I agree and disagree with you on that. I agree. It's egregious when you can't play it on the third hardest difficulty or hard instead of extreme. But like I have a friend who tries to go all the way to the hardest, and like he did this with God of War, and it was a post-patch difficulty update for New Game Plus, and he tried to do it on his very first playthrough, and he spent 3 hours at the very first fight against level 1 enemies that are literally easy as fuck. And it's like, dude, you are ruining the God of War experience for yourself by playing it on the literal hardest difficulty. It should not let you do that unless you're on New Game Plus, because that's what it was designed for. You're going against the design philosophy of the game. If you want to play it on hard, that's fine. That's fine. But you're spending 3 to 5 hours on this very first fight, and you're not even to the boss fight. You're fighting enemies that you hit 3 times with the axe and they're done. But they hit you 1 time and you're out. Because you don't have any upgrades, you don't have anything from a whole entire playthrough, which is what it was designed for. And it's just like, you have to know when to go to those difficulties and then when not to. And like I said, sometimes it just needs to be blocked out. But I totally agree with you. If it's on normal and you can't play hard because you haven't beaten on normal, that's too much.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
too much.
There's yeah. You mentioned Resident Evil. I kind of agree with you on the God of War thing in terms of those games. Well, specifically Resident Evil 7, which has Madhouse difficulty. And that game, it switches up item placements, and it's intended for you already have played the game and like know where everything is and know what you need to do before you're meant to try it on Madhouse. I remember I watched a streamer I like who tried to play the game on Madhouse first and was just having like a terrible time with the game because of it, because it's balanced around you knowing what you're doing already in a way that there's no way you'd know on your first playthrough. So I can definitely see that. I wanted to shout out as well, I guess, or talk about Celeste,
Yeah.
because that game has that's an example of where I did use the assists and the invincibility and stuff for the achievements.
Oh yeah.
But on the other hand, you can do that in Psychonauts too, and I feel like I'm not going to do it. So it really does depend on the game and how I feel about it.
Yep.
I think if the game's frustrating and really, really difficult, there's no shame in turning it on, but I'll also say that for Celeste, I actually think the achievements shouldn't have been made so that you could unlock them with the assists on, because it totally devalues the achievement. Like, the point of the achievements are this extra metagame progression that is non-essential to the game itself. So having them as this bonus challenge for the most dedicated players, that's part of how I view it. So to just say, like, to just have an achievement that's like, do this really hard thing, and then it's like, oh, but you can just get it for free, like, if you want, like, you could just, it's like, well, why is it even an achievement then? Like, why not just give everyone all the achievements as soon as they start the game at that point? Like, so in a sense, I'm almost like, if they're gonna make it that way, I'm gonna make use of it, but also they shouldn't have made it in that way.
Dude, I was sitting here and I was like, that's a damn good argument. But like, I want to be on the other side where it's like, it's nice to have the option to like, because my very first playthrough of Celeste, I didn't use any accessibility. I just kind of played it on the difficulty that it was on, or whatever you choose. And, you know, you die so quickly and then you start over so quickly that I was like, this is a fun little challenge. And I got as many strawberries as I could as I went through. And I was like, if I played it on Switch, if I was to play it on PlayStation, I would maybe attempt a couple times until I was like, I'm so close that I could get it. Or I'm not even getting close. I'm just going to turn it on and like get it and then move on to save my own time. But like, not every player is going to do that. And I also want the completion. So I think it's just nice to have it there. But again, it's like, why not just give all the achievements to everyone? Like,
yeah, if it doesn't matter, then why is it? Or just make all the achievements be like, beat the main story. Like why not just have that be the whole achievement list then? Because
true.
You've made this set of really hard levels with the B-sides and the C-sides, but then you're just like, but who cares? They don't have to solve the level or have any skill to beat it. So whatever. So then it's like, well, why not just have it so that after you beat the story, the main story, the A-sides, you just get everything. So yeah, that kind of annoys me about that game. I feel like I had to bring it up because it's sort of the most weird and like nuanced take I have on this, I think, in terms of difficulty in games.
Right.
I think that we talked about before as well, I think last week, we talked about some games being dynamic with their difficulty, in the way like Hades scales up difficulty, in the way the Resident Evil games, particularly like Resident Evil 4 has, and, you know, Left 4 Dead and things like that, have this game director type thing, or some level of AI that it monitors the amount of ammo you have, it monitors your health, and it knows when to give you a boost and when to not give you anything. I think that's really cool, because then different players, based on their different skill levels, will be treated differently, organically, that still makes the game engaging and threatening and at a sufficiently difficult level for everyone. I think that's really intelligent design. You know, like maybe in Celeste it could be like, if you... I mean, the Mario games, right, with that, like, there's some suits that you can get that after you die a certain amount that help you out. I think Celeste has a similar thing, but just something that like steadily increases the difficulty if you're doing really well, and makes things easier if you're doing badly. That makes sense to me. And then other games like Crash Bandicoot 4 and Control, they have a difficulty, and that's just the difficulty of the game.
I
The
love
Souls
those.
games as well,
I
where
love
it's like
those.
you just play it and that's the difficulty, and there's like nothing else, and that's it. And
Makes me
sometimes
feel
they
good.
add
Control's like my
DLC.
favorite example of that too.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's the most elegant way. Ultimately, I think people argue about From Software games and easy modes, and there's ways you can make those games a lot easier. You can summon and you can over level for boss fights and stuff. But I think I like that. I remember I think Miyazaki was asked about it, and it's like we want this world to be oppressive, or we want the player to have this experience. Like they, I mean, it's like Dark Souls Prepare to Die edition, right? Like they want you to struggle. They want it to be tough. That's the intention. And so to say, oh hey, you can have an easy mode, it ruins it. And I get that there's debates about like obviously what's easy to me isn't easy to someone else, and vice
Absolutely.
versa.
You're a
So
badass, so
I understand that perspective as well. I don't want to seem ignorant of the counter arguments to it. I think that is a compelling case.
but what
And
about specifically what Matt asked, which was like if the trophy or achievement does not have a difficulty tied to it, do you go for it on the hardest difficulty or do you lower the difficulty to get what you need? Because, I mean, you did say that you did it for Celeste, but is that like a normal occasion or is that. Because the thought process that I'm having here is most guides, and you'll see this, and I know that you've seen this before, but it'll be like 3 out of 10 difficulty if you do this, or 7 out of 10, or 9 out of 10 if you don't do this.
yeah, yeah,
So they show you that there's options, and most guides are written in the form of it's going to be easy for you to get this achievement or this 100% or the platinum, whatever you're looking for, the 1,000 out of 1,000 score. They write it in the easiest perspective. But with Resident Evil, I told you during that episode that during my hardest playthrough, I tried not to use medkits. I tried to like combine all of these fun achievements or trophies with that run, and I couldn't do it. I got to the final boss and I was unable to do it. And I just went back and I did it on the easiest one, like the guide recommended. But the point is like I actually attempted for fun doing the challenging trophies during my hardest playthrough, and that's not a normal occasion for me. I don't normally just do that just for fun. I do like to do it when it's fun, but I'll turn it down to the lowest difficulty and I'll get shit done. Like Assassin's Creed is over like 100 hours for the completion, and I wasn't having any part of that. I put that shit on easy, and whenever I came up to the awesome bosses in that game, which by the way, in Valhalla, the bosses are really, really fun, and I turned the difficulty up because otherwise I just stomped them. And I liked having to watch their moves. I liked having to learn what they're doing, but you don't have to do that if you're on easy. Again, like you were saying earlier, you have to. It's taking part of that experience away, and so I would still cheese it because like in Assassin's Creed, there's a ability that you can use where you can like throw them against a wall and it takes a huge chunk of their health, and I would do that, but I would also do it well on a harder difficulty so that it was like if I got hit, I'm using my med kits. Because on easy, you don't even have to. You could just hit them and you'll gain your health back. But like, I like to lower the difficulty for things that I can't do, but I like to play the games on either normal or hard, and then go from there, getting the trophies and achievements that I get, if that makes sense. But I wanted to know
yeah.
how you do it.
It totally depends on the game. It's not. There's no universal rule for it. You just want to maximize the fun you're having, I guess, really, and challenge yourself if the game is engaging. I think for me it's probably usually when I lower the difficulty, it's like I'm done with this. Like I just wanna be done and move on to the next game. That's usually when I'll lower the difficulty. In like, but there's other. I mean, Yakuza games. I don't think the combat is great. I think it's okay. It's fine. It gets too repetitive. There's when you run around the streets, enemies will sort of not quite appear out of nowhere, but pretty close to that, and will just run up to you and you'll get into a fight, and that just happens over and over again in that game. There's some ways to stop it from happening depending on the game and stuff, but
Yeah, that's
usually like with stuff like that annoying me, it's like I'll just turn it down to easy because I just want to go bowling. I want to go bowling, I want to play darts, I want to go do the disco, I want to do the story, whatever I want to do. I don't want to put up with this, so I'll lower the difficulty. So yeah, I'm not against it, and I'm not really I'm not really for it. It would definitely depend on the specific game,
I
and
agree.
if I think lowering the difficulty hurts the experience or not, and or if it's just not worth like putting up with the headache of higher difficulties.
I'm not gonna say I shame people for it either. Like, play how you want to play. I just think that sometimes there are scenarios where you are robbing yourself a little bit. Like, try to do it a little bit harder. But other than that, I really don't have much to say about other people trying to lower the difficulty to get what they need. But I wish more games, like a lot of games, I have to give really big props to design for the way they do trophy and achievements. But like on Persona 4 Golden, I'm on my second playthrough, and on your first playthrough, you can't change difficulty. You choose what you start with on Persona 4 Golden, and you're with that the entire game. And if that's too hard for you, you got to restart, and because it's a turn-based game. And on the second playthrough, it's really awesome because, like I said, I'm blowing through it, but I put it on easy, and what I'm doing is they had sliders in the options. You can choose to do more damage output. You can choose to gain more experience and more money during the playthrough. So while I'm just fucking rushing through, I'm getting more money than I ever had in the first playthrough. I'm getting more experience and leveling up faster than I ever needed, which I do need these things for like maxing out the compendium, a different trophy, and for like just being able to defeat like two of the hardest enemies in the game, which they recommend you don't do during the first playthrough. But I need to get high enough level so that I can just take these down. And like I said, I'm on easy, and I'm just boosting myself to the top so that I can do it. And even on easy, I have a feeling it's not going to be too easy. But in a game that's 90 hours long, I think that it's totally reasonable to drop that down, get through, and do it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure.
But it's nice design. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was going to say we should probably, like, we could mark here and we could start the 12-minute discussion if you would like.
Yeah. I mean, people are going to have to, like, strap in or whatever because
Yeah.
this is
we'll put a timestamp in for the beginning of this part and then the end of this part, which is going to be the 12-minute game discussion with possible spoilers. I think we're going to go into spoilers.
So the way I've structured the way I talk about this game is I've got like a big section where I say my thoughts on it without spoilers, and then a section, and we'll say when we're going into spoiler territory if that's.
Yeah, I want to let you drive this section because you've written so much for it, and I want to just be there to throw in my opinions during this, and my questions too, because I do have questions. It's a very confusing part, but where the timestamp will end is going to be at the trophy and achievement of the week. So that's where the skip ahead if you don't want any spoilers for 12 minutes.
Okay, so 12 minutes. It's a top-down, narrative-focused point-and-click adventure game. It was shown at Xbox E3 conferences. It got sort of a hype boost because it stars James McAvoy, it stars Willem Dafoe and Daisy Ridley, and the context is you're trapped in a 12-minute time loop and you've got to solve a mystery. So as we talked about earlier, we both enjoyed the game, and I will say I came away a bit disappointed by it initially. I still think this, but my thoughts on this game change like the more I think about it and the more I watch speculation and interpretation. So it's one of those games where everyone will come away from it with different thoughts and feelings, and you can see that in the reception to it in terms of the review scores, because I've seen some outlets give it 9s and 9.5s, and some give it like 4s and 6s. I think that they could have probably developed the characters a little better, and the story doesn't stick the landing in some ways. But I think we both definitely recommend the game because it's very short. You can complete it in a couple of hours. It's interesting and unique. It's on Game Pass as well. Unfortunately, it's not on PlayStation yet, so that's one way it's harder to play. And I think if I had to rate it, I'd give it like a 7 or an 8 out of 10. And yeah, I keep thinking about it.
Yeah.
I like it more the more I think about it. Although initially, it's weird if you were going to plot a graph of my enjoyment versus time, it was like going up and then it went down suddenly. It like had a sharp spike downwards, plummeted, and then it's been steadily increasing since. So first of all, I really like the perspective of the game. I like how confined and dense the environment is. It's really claustrophobic, and the game takes place like the setting of the game is just a hallway leading into an apartment, and then a living room, a closet, a bathroom, and a bedroom, and that's essentially it. And the game, it keeps you guessing throughout in terms of the central mystery. It does a really good job of leaving you in suspense. I thought it was strange. I mentioned James McAvoy and Daisy Ridley. It's weird how they hired two British actors for this game
And made them American.
An American couple.
Yeah, and Daisy doesn't even sound like Daisy Ridley. Like, I was like, is that really her though? Like, she sounds so different. She sounds so different doing the American accent that I was like, it doesn't even sound like her.
Yeah, part of me's like, why hire them then, right? And they can have more. Surely they can have more range and do more if they, don't need as much of like a voice coach and can speak in more of a native accent. And there's nothing in the setting of the game as well where it's like, I was almost waiting for the game to justify them being American, if that makes sense. Like, if the story became about like something that is very specific to the US that couldn't be in Britain or anywhere else in the world, and that never happens. There's never like anything about like the Pentagon or like the FBI or something. You get what I mean? Like, there's no moment in the game where you're like, oh, this has to be America. They couldn't have. So it was a little strange. This could have been an apartment or a flat in the UK.
Yeah.
Maybe they thought the game would have more appeal if the protagonists were American, but it just seems strange with the talent they hired for it.
Yeah, disingenuous. Like, just not. It feels. It goes against the grain. It feels like it would be so much easier just to write it and let the actors actually perform in their native accents than...
Yeah, both actors are immensely talented, and it's like it doesn't ruin the game and it doesn't ruin the performances or anything like that.
No.
Because they're used to that sort of thing and they, do it all the time and they're so experienced and so talented. But it's just weird. It's just weird and unnecessary and never really justified. I mean, yeah, I'd love to know the answer to this. I do wonder there might be an interview out there where he does explain it, where the writer explains it.
I'm just so glad that this game exists. Like, I hope that as the video game industry continues to grow, that like little indie projects like this can get actors. Like, it doesn't have to be a Call of Duty with a big budget, like this multi-million-dollar budget to have these famous actors, because that's how it's always been in the gaming industry. If you look back on it, it's like the big actors are the people that they grab for Call of Duty, and it's like, we don't need that. You can have really good performances in really small games, and that's what I'm hoping the industry like trends towards. And this game is something that I'm so glad that exists, but I think that it's very special in the way that like I don't think I would ever replay this game. Like, I'm with you where it's like a 7 or an 8. I'm probably just going to throw in a 7.5 because I like the half numbers. But like going into this, I'm like figuring it out and I got everything done, and then I go back and watch, like, do the entire completion, and then I would just let that stew, because this is, like, the same thing with The Last of Us Part 2. Like, I don't want to play The Last of Us Part 2 again. Like, ever. Like, that game, like, that conversation, or the conversation around that game, I feel like is very tied into the same situation that we're having with 12 Minutes, and it's so much fun in the gaming industry. But this isn't, like, something that it's like, oh, yeah, this is infinitely fun and replayable. It's not. It's not a fun loop. It's not a fun thing to do, and it was like, I'm so happy that I played it and I recommend it to people. A great example for a game that's like completely replayable and kind of smaller just like this is It Takes Two. Like, you know how fun that is? It's fun, it's replayable. This, not fun, not replayable, in my opinion. But
yeah, I think as well for this game, I guess this is a mild spoiler, but we mentioned earlier that you retain information, your character retains information between loops, and you can't beat the game in a loop. So it means that in a single loop. So it automatically means that if you ever did replay this game, you have to go through several loops of information gathering and item gathering and to piece things together. And so that means it is, even if you know what you're doing. I mean, that's the other thing, right? If you already know what you're doing, then there's no fun at all in the game at that point. But even with that, even if you did find that fun, it's innately repetitive of doing the same thing and needing to do certain things to progress in the game. So yeah, I definitely agree in terms of replayability. There's basically none beyond beyond solving the mystery, essentially.
Right. And my first ending, we're just full in spoilers now, but like my first ending was
Okay,
alone.
wait. I have two more things to say
Okay, yeah, go
before we
ahead.
go into spoilers.
Yeah, go
So
ahead.
I thought that the dialogue system of the game and how it tells its story through gameplay interaction is really creative, and I think it's fantastic. I think that it means that there's more jank in this game because you can figure some things out of order, and then you can also initiate conversations sort of anywhere in loads of different places, and sometimes the character models will like glitch out and your character will say things that don't make sense. So there's a sacrifice to it, but it surprised me because this game has, film star voice actors, but the game isn't trying to be a movie. It's not a completely linear walking simulator cutscene fest. It's like a point and click puzzle adventure game, and that's what it is. It still knows it's a game, and it's still aiming to tell its narrative through gameplay along with story and dialogue. It's putting them both together in a way that works really well, and that's probably the best thing about it in terms of why I'm positive about it. And they could have got a more polished experience if they sidelined the gameplay and the puzzles and all of that, and probably refine the narrative as well. But I'm glad they didn't. I'm glad they presented the game in the way that it is, because it really adds to the uniqueness and the flavor of it. And
Yeah.
then connected to that, the second thing I was going to say is that the game does a great job of giving you lots of options to toy around with, and there's a distribution of, I suppose, red herrings or objects that aren't obvious or don't matter is really quite good. And all of the puzzle solutions, even with all of this, I thought they were pretty much all logical. I wasn't too angry at. There's some, especially with point and click adventure games, they're notorious for this, where you find out a solution or you look up a solution to a puzzle, and you're like, how was I supposed to know that? Like, how ever would anyone know that? That doesn't even make any sense. In this game, it felt like pretty close to everything was logical and made sense in terms of how you progress things, and a lot of the lines of dialogue give you sort of subtle hints to figure things out. The only, I guess, criticism here is that sometimes you can't give objects or tell people what you want to, and that's really annoying. But that happens like 5% of the time. 95% of the time, everything works as it should, I feel. So I think the game should be commended for both of those.
I'll go ahead and put my input in on both of those things. Is I actually got stuck at the very end and had to look something up in order to trigger the very last thing. And I'll go into that on spoilers, but I'm so curious as to what the actors think about this whole game. Like, I just want to see interviews with their thoughts, because I mean, I don't want to insult anyone, but like, I can't imagine how many actors, big time, big name actors, are more than casual gamers. So I want to know what their thoughts are on this smaller title, and then their performances being added to such a budget game, but being so good.
Did you sorry to interrupt. Did you see the interview with James McAvoy
I have not.
about he has an interview where people ask about his gaming history, and he was saying he was doing a role, I don't remember which, but it was something where it was around the time Oblivion came out, and he was so obsessed with that game that he would stay up all night, and it would be like 5 a.m. and he'd still be playing it when like the taxi shows up to take him to work to do his job acting. And so he got so obsessed with it that he said he took the disc out and then burned it on the stove to stop him from going back and playing it
Oh my
while he has to
god.
focus on this big role. So he seems to be definitely an avid gamer. I know there was another interview where people asked him his favorite games, and he listed loads of them. People like there's some. I mean, it's hard to tell because they're all written interviews, but I know there's some actors and some celebrities where it's like and like politicians and people where they get asked about music or movies or video games, and they say like, oh yeah, I'm a really big fan of it, and it's like really obvious that they're not actually a fan of it. Like
Exactly.
they don't know what they're talking about. But with him, I did get the impression that it's genuine. And I know that when they both, I think when James McAvoy, Daisy Ridley, and Willem Dafoe got asked about like why they did the game. I mean, first of all, they didn't say this, but Annapurna is in movie production as well, and a lot of their games, a lot of their published games have film star voice talent. I know even Sayonara Wild Hearts has like Queen Latifah in it, and there's a new game coming out. What's it called? It's called like I think it's called The Artful Escape, and that game's coming out soon from them, and it's got like Mark Strong in it as voice talent and other celebrities. So part of it is definitely Annapurna, but then part of it is apparently, according to them, they got sent the script and they really loved it. You know, reading it, they and the twists and the turns and everything. They were fans of it. So that seems to be somewhat of an answer to your question, I guess.
James McElroy, that's his name, right?
Yeah, James McAvoy.
Did he do Deacon St. John in Days Gone?
I don't think so.
You don't think so?
I think this was his first role. Do you know who James McAvoy is? I know that's a...
I don't.
Okay.
But his voice was very familiar to me.
Well, he's Scottish, so... I mean, like, he didn't... He's in... He's Professor Xavier in the X-Men films.
Yeah, I just looked him up. He's
Patrick Stewart.
I see it. I see who he is.
The other one. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I'm sure you've seen him.
Oh, yeah, I've seen him before. Oh, yeah.
X-Men. He's a great actor. He's one of my favorites.
He's really good.
Great. He's fantastic.
He did great in the game, too. So that's awesome that he's a gamer, too.
Yeah.
Oh, man. All right, can we go right into the spoilers?
Yeah, so, nothing's off limits now. We're going to go into spoilers.
Okay.
I don't know if you want me to start off or if you want to start off with something.
I want to start off because I have a question to ask so that I can get some things cleared up, and then we can go straight into the spoilers. But my first ending was alone. I think I screwed it up because, I mean, after it's over, you go into the apartment, and it's empty, and I just let it sit there, and I was like, is it going to restart the loop? And it never restarted the loop, and I was like, I guess I just have to delete my save. But I guess you could have used the key to open up the vent in the back.
Yep.
And I was like, because there was nothing else, I could have seen another ending. And I was like, oh well. It seems like, and here's my question, is the dad the cop, and did he cheat again with another person in order to have the daughter who has cancer? Or like, what is...
So
there's so much going on.
All right, I don't know. Okay. This is where it gets messy, right?
Because it's so messy.
We're talking like that question. Yeah. So I don't think that the cop is real. As in, I don't think it's a real person. I think that the events of the game are happening within... Okay, so first of all, I guess I want to say this YouTuber Bob's Vids has a great video explaining 12 minutes and the endings within 12 minutes. So it's very impressive, and it's fantastic, and that sort of realigns some of my thinking. What's really annoying about this game and talking about this game is that the main character is just called husband, and the other character, Daisy Ridley's character, is called like wife, and that's it. I'm going to call them James and Daisy, if that's okay. Mm-hmm. Just because it's easier, because we're talking about like dads and sisters, and it will get too confusing otherwise, I feel. So
do it. Willem, baby.
Yeah, so the cop, so Willem's cop and the dad are both played by Willem Dafoe. I think the dad is real, and I don't think the cop's real. And I don't think the events of the game are real. I think they're fantasies of James. So that's sort of the big, like, mind-blowing revelation that sort of explains everything.
Yeah. At
least to me. There's a few reasons for this. First of all, the game doesn't make sense otherwise, in my opinion, and in other people's opinion. So, when you get towards the ending of the game, of any of the endings, you get transported into a flashback to when James is asking the dad if he can marry Daisy, right?
Right.
In that flashback, and in those flashbacks, the dad knows that Daisy is pregnant, which doesn't make sense because it was 8 years ago, and the dad is dead by the time Daisy gets pregnant, and James only just found out that Daisy is pregnant. So the dad talking about that doesn't make sense at all in that context. So the events of the game seem to be not real, is my take. And I think that the cop is like... It's like a version of the father, a manifestation of the father ruining this fantasy that James has of being with Daisy. And it's this idea that, like, whatever he tries to do, the cop shows up, which is his father, to ruin it, because he says, like, you can't get married with her, the two of you are related, like, this will never work, and the cop is like literally breaking in and choking him out, right, and stopping them from being together. So I think that is in his head. And the other reason I think this, which I haven't really heard many people talk about, is that if you get to the credits of the game, the cop is not credited at all. The father is credited as Willem Dafoe, but the cop doesn't have a credit. It's not like it says like the cop is Willem Dafoe and the father is Willem Dafoe or whatever. And every other character is credited. So even the cop's daughter is credited, which is wild, right? But the cop isn't credited, and it's like there's no way they forgot. They're trying to signal that this isn't real. Essentially, is my interpretation. It's tough. I guess this is like to go back a few steps. I really like how in this game, in terms of spoilers, I really like how the game goes so much further than you expect. And I think that the best twist is probably when you come to a solution with the cop. So you either like send him away or you convince him that neither of you are the killers. And then after that, you kind of think for a moment, or at least I did, that you've solved it. You've solved the loop, right? And then you're happy. You're like, yes, I sent the cop away. I convinced him, gave him the watch. He's happy.
Credits are about to roll, baby.
We're together. Yeah, and then it's like, and then it restarts again, and you're like,
no,
that's not. Yeah, exactly. It's such a great moment, and no one. Yeah, I kind of feel like everyone talks about the other twist, which is the incest, is Wincest twist of that you're half siblings with Daisy. But that twist was great for me, and there's so many layers to the story, and you don't even know like the thing that you've been working towards isn't the solution. And that's like a really that's delivered so well, because I was, and I think everyone is totally fooled by that. Like everyone thinks that the solution is to stop the cop from killing you or killing your wife, and
right,
then
that's what
it.
You think that the point of the game is. And dude, like I said, I got stuck at 2 parts, and that right there was one of the parts that I got stuck at. So the loop restarts, and I'm like, I thought I did it. I thought it was over, and then the cop keeps saying it was something flowery, and I wasn't getting the hint. And I looked up like it was like a step-by-step guide, and I just went down. I didn't go too far so that I would get spoiled, but I was like, okay, so here's what I finished, and here's the next part that I have to do, and it just said, get the baby clothes, and so I got the baby clothes, and I was like, okay, I'll figure the rest out. I don't need to look anymore. And so I did, and then the second part I got stuck at was having to look at the clock again in the bathroom. I didn't know that I needed to pull it out and look at it again. So I was like, a little bit vague there, but those are the only 2 parts that I really got stuck at. There was times when I was hitting my head against a wall, and I was like, I'm close, and I just have to keep trying different things. Eventually, actually, one of the parts that I struggled to get to, but I mean, this was maybe a span of 20 minutes, so it's not like a big time, but like getting the cop to turn on the light and then like have the electricity shock him so that he falls over, I was like, how can I get him to do that? I know that's what I need to do, but how? And then I finally was like, sleeping pills. I can knock her out. And then during dinner, I set up all the plates and everything, and I knocked her out, and I hid in the closet, and then he went in there, and I was like, it felt so good to solve that. And I didn't look it up. But like I said, only at the end is where I got really stuck. Yeah, it was interesting to get to that point where I was like, yes, I saved the day. I did it. And then it restarts, and I'm like, are you serious?
Yeah, I think the part with the onesie and the baby name and stuff, I think that's fine. I think the part with the watch where you have to keep holding it to get to the next area, I think that's not signposted or like told to you very well. I think that's probably one of the rare examples where the game falters a little. I think in the game's defense, I think the way what it's supposed to be signaling to you is when you pick up that watch. So sometimes when you pick up an item in the game, it holds the item in front of you. Like, for example, when you get the key at the start, the key from under the rock by the plant, it, like, puts the key in your face. It's like, here's the key. Like, you hold it up. When you get the watch, that sometimes happens. And at a certain point in the game, when you get the watch, it's going backwards. Like, time is going backwards instead of forwards.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's supposed to be the signal that you have to keep holding onto it, because you're going back like before the start of the loop, if that makes sense.
Yes.
And that's when you get transported to the flashback. And also it's a really good transition, because the watch in your hand transitions to the clock on the wall when you were with your father, right? Like the background slowly changes to the background of the father's office. which is quite
Yes.
cool. But I still think there's nothing to suggest that you need to pick up the watch and look at it. So it's not brilliant, but it does give you sort of two hints if you do go back and pick it up.
I think that your theory, I think that your theory with the mind stuff, it really adds up. Like you said, the timeline is 8 years, and there's no way he can know about her being pregnant at that time.
So I think the problem with the game in terms of the story is the main twist. Even though I feel like I get it now, I feel like the way it's delivered guarantees that the player is going to be confused. You get really quickly learn that James and Daisy are half brothers and sisters, and then also like they share a father, and the father's affair with the nanny resulted in James's birth, and then like straight after that you get the flashback, and then the flashback, the guy that's talking to you is Willem Dafoe, and it's not even. I mean, immediately I'm like, is this the cop? Is this the dad? Right? Like you're just like what? Like you've already been hit with like this huge twist, and then straight after it's like you're dealing with this conversation, and when I first played it I was like, what is going on? This is so stupid, and like I don't get it. Like I need them to slow down for me, and it seems really stupid, and I still do think it's a little so the way it's delivered is pretty clunky. And then also I think a problem is I talked about I wish the characters got developed more, and also I feel like there's not enough characters arguably to justify the twist as well as it could do. Like there's so few characters in the game that it's kind of it's arguably a little predictable that he's the brother, that James is the brother, because it's like there's no one else in the game it could be, if that makes sense. Like it kind of ruins itself. Well, ruins is too strong a word, because I still think it works, but I think if the game was bigger and had more time and had more character dynamics and maybe a couple more characters, I think it could have been stronger and more effective.
So was that not surprising to you that he was the brother? Because it was surprising to me.
It was surprising, but I figured it out very shortly before it was said.
Okay.
To you.
For me, I was like, he's just out there. That like the whole world was just those characters, and I think that I grew so closely to them because of that. And I wasn't like, oh, it has to be one of them. It was just like one of this situation where it's like, I don't know who killed the dad. It's such in real life. My mom watches like a ton of these murder documentaries, and sometimes there are people who get away with murder, and that just happens. They don't know whatever happened to the person. They don't know. And I was like, that's just what's happening. We don't know who fucking killed the dad. Like, we will never know. And I just thought that was going to happen, and that's how they were going to write this story. And then it restarts, and I was like, what the fuck? And then whenever it's like, even the main character has the moment where he's like, I'm the killer? Like, what? Like, and I'm just sitting there like, holy fuck, dude, what is going on? And I guess I just never had that moment where I was like, it has to be one of these characters because there's nobody else. I just was like assuming that it was just somebody else. It was just out there.
Yeah, there's a great moment as well when James finds out he's the brother and the killer. It like the loop restarts, and then in the next loop he's still reacting to it, and he knocks himself out or something, and the loop restarts again. So it's affecting him so much that it ruins the next loop as well. That's like a really cool thing that they did really that cool. I appreciate. And then, yeah, I think for me as well, it's not a huge problem, but I think the game works pretty amazingly on like more of like a cerebral, like a puzzle box level more than an emotional level. Like I don't know if I'm heartless or something, but I didn't care too much about James or Daisy. I cared more about solving the problem and the mystery. You almost see the game, at least I did, as like a challenge. Like you're in this like tiny environment, you've got to figure it out, you got to piece it together, and like this is for you, the player, you know?
Yes.
And that's the way I saw it. And so I think the game because of that, the game isn't as emotionally successful or as emotionally resonant as it could be if they developed the characters a bit more and if they had a bit more time to do it. And maybe if it wasn't so good at doing the sort of challenging like puzzle aspects, because I do think it does that really well. I still like the game a lot, but I can totally understand. I mean, first of all, that's why some of those are like the reasons why it's not a 10 out of 10 to me, and also it's why I can understand some people not liking the game and not liking the twist and the story. But I feel like I want to try and go over and expand upon what I was saying earlier about the endings and the interpretation of them. So there's three main endings to the game, and they depend on how you talk to the father in the flashback. So the first ending, the one that you got, is the alone ending. So you tell the father that you can't be with Daisy, and then the game sort of ends, but the loop also sort of restarts. Only the apartment is empty now, and you're alone. And the reason I say the loop restarts is because it's an ending, but it feels like a false ending or like a bad ending or a fake ending or whatever you want to call it, because the stopwatch is still there, right? The stopwatch is still in the apartment, and when you get it, you get transported back. So it's almost like a fake out in terms of that, like, you can go back and keep going, right? So I think that, first of all, because there's a lot of debate and a lot of thought about like which ending is the true ending, is there a true ending? So I think for me, I'm like, the alone ending, it's not the real ending. The stopwatch is still there. It doesn't seem like you don't really get that much closure with it, and it seems to want you to go back. But when you pick up the stopwatch as well, the stopwatch, one of the hands is broken, and you can force it into place and then restart the loop with Daisy. So I think that the game is like still keeping you in the loop at that point, but in like more of like a different way. Yeah, and also I guess that ties into the game kind of not being real, or the events of the game not being real, that it's sort of forcing you to go back. And then the second ending of the game, which I thought could be the true one until recently. Again, that great Bob's Vids video it helped solve the mystery for me so much in terms of how I feel about the game and how I think about it. But this ending essentially is where the dad hypnotizes James in the past and makes him forget that him and Daisy are half siblings. So this is like a hypnosis ending where the dad hypnotizes James, stops him from remembering that him and her are half siblings, and then they can live together happily, is the assumption. Although it's vague. And what's quite cool about this ending is that it deletes your game progress. So it's like, again, it's a way that gameplay is interacting with narrative, because it's like James, the character, is being hypnotized and going back, and being able to go back and start again without the knowledge that he's accrued through the game. And you, the player, also have to reset with him, like, completely. But again, like, at first I thought this meant, like, congratulations, you've solved it. But also it feels like a false ending, because what you essentially have done is you've restarted the loop, but you've, like, restarted, like, a massive loop. Like, it's like lots of smaller loops building up to a giant loop where your progress gets deleted and you get sent back to the main menu to start again, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like, you've essentially, like, it's better than the alone ending, but it's also still not, like, you've not got the solution.
It feels like you just witnessed what's going on and how he is hypnotized, and you are realizing it, but he is not able to realize it because he is hypnotized. So this is the point where, like, the game is, you're on the same level and you're trying to figure things out with the main character, but then you continue forward and the main character is restarted at the beginning, and you're like, oh shit, like, whoa.
Yeah, so then, okay, so we've talked about, like, the cop and the father being the manifestation, and then this comes into play the most in terms of the final ending, which I think is the true ending. It's the mindfulness ending. Now is, like, the best time to mention. I don't know if you noticed, but the clock in the game in the father's office and the clock that's in, like, the main menu and basically everywhere in the game, it has these 3 gold rings on it.
And they move.
And, yeah, when you figure some things out in the game, the rings move into place. And with every other ending in the game, you can only get a maximum of 2 rings in place. The 3rd ring won't slot into place unless you get the mindfulness ending, which to me is, like, huge evidence of, like, this is the real ending, this is the true ending. You do the same as the hypnosis ending, but instead of... So you have to get the hypnosis ending, you have to click on the book on meditations when you're in the father's office. And so you do the same thing here, but you click on the clock instead of just letting the father hypnotize you and talk. And then when you do, you're told by the father, like, directly, you're told that that James believes too deeply in fantasies and that he needs to let them go. And so to me, that's like, okay, so the events of the game are just fantasies, right? Like, they're just they're just like James like thinking about, like, he's back in the past, he's looking at the clock and he's thinking about what could be with him and Daisy. And then again, the cop is the dad, like snapping him back to reality, like while he's like James is like fantasizing and looking and trying to escape from the knowledge he's learned about Daisy being his sibling. He's trying to focus on the clock and like think about like, no, we can be together and we can, have kids and it'll be great and best day ever and we've got dessert and it's all, happy times. And then the cop is the dad, like being like, nope, like it won't work. Nothing you can do, it won't work. You have to accept this and you have to move on and you have to deal with it. And so that dialogue is like directly saying that to the player and to James at that point.
That's so interesting because there was a point, the exact moment whenever he discovers that he's the killer, I thought that it was going to go in a different direction where he's a psychopath and you're going to be playing as a psychopath. But his reaction was not that. And I was like, what is happening? It sent me on that questioning of like, what the fuck is going on again? And I just thought, I was like, maybe he is a psychopath and he's just trying to block everything out and just do this because that's like all he wants. But if he's sitting there and he's trying to escape and he's doing all this stuff, that still lines up with he is a psychopath. He doesn't want to listen to his dad. He's got his own agenda. He's got his own plans. He like, even when he kills, I don't even know if you could say he kills his dad because like during that flashback where they get into a tussle, it's an accident. Is that murder? I don't know.
Well, I mean, I don't think that's real. Like, again, I think that it's like the game is taking place when James is being told, like he's being told by his dad, he's like, that's your sister, like you can't get with her. And then I think he's, like that's part of his fantasy, right? He's like, my dad's the only person who knows. So like, what if I just kill my dad and then, like we'll do this and we'll do that. And then it's about like it catching up with him, right? That it's like, no, but I can't just kill my dad or I can't just escape because then someone's going to show up and ruin it. And it's never going to be like, it's never going to work. It's like now that I know, it's forever like screwed. Like there's nothing I can do now. And so I think that's like the message of the game essentially.
That's
and the final thing I have to support this is after you get this mindfulness ending, that's essentially the ending that's like James being like, okay, I can't, like I'm going to remember and that's, I need to give up on the fantasies. I think that ending is suggested to be the most real one, not only because of the 3 rings coming into place, but when you beat the game with this ending, you cannot continue the game and you also can't start a new game. So it's like the loop is like, it's like fully broken. Like you get taken back to the main menu and it's like, nope, you can't play the game again. Like that's it. And
whoa,
you can get around it because they have to make a way for you to get around it, right? Because what if you've missed achievements or or want to play the game again, right? Like, so what you can do is you can take the clock and you can move the hand backwards on the main menu and then it resets the game. But when you get back to the main menu as well, like the reason you can't restart the game is because the 12 minutes have passed on the clock. Like, as in the clock is it's done. Like it's at 12 and it's like 12 minutes have gone by and it's not reset, right? Like it's there, it's not reset. You can't go back in the game. To go back in the game, you have to manually reset it this time. Like the game itself is like finished and it's like you've got the actual ending. So that's like another like huge hint to me that's like this is what they intend as the true ending.
Yeah, and I have a friend who did the Xbox 1000 gamer score on it too. It's pretty cool because he's been listening to the show and it made him want to like complete a game, and I think that's really, really fun. But he did that and then he messaged me and he's like, you have to see the mindfulness ending. That's the real ending. And then I was like, okay, and then you just confirm, like you say it too. I think that like the consensus is that is the ending. Like that is the true ending.
Yeah, it has to be, I think. I think it's definitely the best ending as well and the coolest ending. So it's sort of like you want that to be the true ending. Because I think if we again, like the big hurdle is obviously if you believe that the game isn't real, right? That the events of the game isn't real. That's like in terms of the room and with Daisy and James and all of that, that's a fantasy. Like if you go back to the Alone ending, it's like the Alone ending is almost like James sulking, right? Like it's like he's like, because the apartment sucks, right? When you have the Alone ending, it's like everything's gone, like the medicine cabinet's gone, like all the objects in the
All the
apartment are gone. It's
furniture.
like,
Yeah,
yeah,
everything's
it's
empty.
like, yeah. So it's basically the way I think about it is almost like James being like he's not fully accepted it. He's just like, oh, my life's gonna suck now. Like she's not in it. Everything's gone. Like everything sucks, and the only thing here is a stopwatch, right? So it's like he's not over it. He's just sort of like pretending to be over it. Whereas the mindfulness one is like him actually getting over it and like actually moving forward and having the support of his dad and like all of that. Whereas the Alone ending isn't that. It's like it's almost there but not quite. If that makes sense. That's how I sort of view all of the main endings.
Is she
But
still
like,
pregnant?
no, I think the game. To be clear, I think the actual events are like 8 years ago. Like they're just when James is talking to the dad. Like that's the only thing that's happening in like real time.
Right.
Everything else is him projecting, right? So yeah, all of that, like thinking about that and being like educated on it by like videos and speculation and interpretation and stuff. I think that's the way it makes the most sense to me without a lot of major plot holes.
Right.
And I think that makes the narrative work a lot better as well. So like I said, like at first when I heard the twist and got my first ending, it was like this kind of sucks. Like they kind of failed it. But now I'm like, oh, if all of that we've just talked about, if all of that fits in and works, then they actually did a pretty good job. Like it works pretty well. So yeah, I'm really happy with that, and I like how, I don't know, maybe this is elitist or something, but the way the game, like most people won't get all of the endings.
Yeah, right.
You mentioned that you didn't notice, that you could get out of the Alone ending, for example, and keep going. It's like most people won't get it, and I always think that's maybe it is like a like hipster, like pretentious thing, but I always find that quite cool when like a game or a film or a TV show or anything really challenges its audience and is like, there's more layers to this than, and we don't even feel like we need to show you all of it. Like if you want to figure it out, you can figure it out, but it's not mandatory, and also it's like you get to engage with it at the level that you want, and only like a certain few will like mine all of the gold out of it. I think that's like a really cool concept, and a lot of like thriller horror games do that. I mean, like PT did that, right? And like and
Dude, you could
I,
expand this into the entire genre. Like look at Donnie
well,
Darko, look at Gone Girl, look at like all these psychological horror movies, Ex Machina or whatever it's called. Like this genre is like some people will just be like, "Oh, that was fucked up," but some people will deep dive and be like, "Let's figure this out." And it all depends on like if you want to go the extra step to figure it out, cuz now that like you've told me a lot of this stuff, I'm like this game's actually pretty awesome. Like that's
yeah,
actually really fucking cool.
I bring up PT because, of course, I don't know if you know about this, but Hideo Kojima loves this game. Like he's been tweeting about this game and he's been playing it. I mean, part of it is probably because of the Hollywood, tier actors in
Yeah.
it, because he loves his actors. I think Edwin, friend of the show, of course, Edwin mentioned that in Discord, and I think there's probably a bit more to it like that, because it is that sort of like puzzle box mystery thing that Kojima also likes to do. It's that kind of thing where it's like the most dedicated and resourceful and just people that care about it are going to find more and more to this game, and that's just so satisfying and so amazing when it's done properly, because it just shows the amount of care and attention that's put into the story and into the gameplay, and it's great. I really respect that, even if I don't think that the delivery of the ending totally works, and I do think it is a overly confusing and a little contrived. Even with that, it's like the ambition and the attention to detail overcomes that. It's still a great time, even with that.
This adds a huge value to Game Pass in my opinion. Like so much better than Halo. I'm just kidding, dude. I'm just kidding. But like,
Yeah, I mean, it's a great Game Pass game
it
in that
really is.
it's like 5 hours long as well.
Yeah.
So it's like you don't feel like you. I honestly think I know people argue about it. It's off topic, but people are like, oh, for Game Pass to work, you need like every game's going to be like live service and like
No.
400 hours. But I'm like, that's the opposite of what will make Game Pass work. Because let's say you have a game that is live service and like wants everyone to play like 20 hours a week. You know, like that's like how you commit your time to it. If they put if that's all Game Pass is, people are just going to choose their favorite one and then just buy that game and then not play anything on Game Pass, right? Like a lot of people that play stuff like, you know, MMOs and like Destiny 2 and like Sea of Thieves and stuff, like a lot of people that play that, that's like the main game that they play. That's like the only game that they play.
Right.
And so why would someone like that stay subscribed to Game Pass? Game Pass benefits from having a broad variety of games that have different lengths in lots of different genres, in lots of different age ratings, and it does mean a lot of like shorter episodic games or narrative games that you can put on one evening, you know, like with Netflix or whatever, and a movie, just like take a risk on it, put it on, be done with it in 3 hours, and then it's like, hey, I really enjoyed that, on to the next one. And then that, you know, and you're like, oh, I saved, I don't know, like $20 or whatever the price of these games are. So
I mean,
yeah,
if
that's my take on that type of thing.
if the person comes from Sea of Thieves or whatever one game they're playing and they pay for Game Pass, I mean that for just that one game, that pays almost for it because it's about $15 a month. But if you go Ultimate, but I just love that. I've said it several times throughout the podcast. I just love that games like this exist. Like this is right where I want video games to be. Like I want the Return of Obra Dinn. I want the 12 minutes. I want these small games that get me by on a night or a day that I have nothing to do and I want to play something through, but then I also can like go back to my Ghost of Tsushima afterwards. You know what I mean? Like it's so nice that this is like a space that exists and Game Pass is helping boost that up and I fucking love it, dude. Like I will never dog on Game Pass for that reason because they take the smaller devs and then they give them budget, because I don't know if you remember, but like this art style changed a lot, the game changed a lot, and from when they first showed it, and I'm like all for it. I'm so for it. I freaking am so happy that this turned out the way it did, and I'm not disappointed in any way by the game. But I mean, like, I will buy it on PlayStation and platinum it. I will if it comes out on PlayStation, and
yeah,
like that that because I played it on my Xbox Game Pass, and then I'll purchase it later. That's good for the dev. You know what I mean?
yeah, definitely. I mean, it's also like people, again, it's a tangent, but people, there's a lot of debate, and I don't know either way. I think no one knows either way is the truth. But you know, there's a whole thing of like, oh, Game Pass hurts, you know, game sales, especially on Xbox, right? And some people think that, and some people don't think that. And
I think that
analysts chip in and stuff, but it's so hard to analyze because it's like, if it weren't for Game Pass, like this game's like an Xbox and PC exclusive, and it's on Game Pass, and you probably wouldn't, or you're less likely to buy it than you are to play it on Game Pass because you're not like a big Xbox guy, right? But then you're potentially going to buy it on PlayStation, and it's like that sale is kind of because of Game Pass, essentially. But like, there's no way you would be able to track that because, you know, you're buying it on PS5, right? So it's like you can't attribute that to Xbox, even if Game Pass is responsible in some way. It's like there's no way to measure it,
right? But
in that sense, like it's
there's recent like just very subtle evidence that this is the case, and I mean you can't just throw the people buying it only on PlayStation, but like Square Enix did the sales on Outriders, and it was like majority of the purchases were on PlayStation because it's on Game Pass, and no one on the Xbox side is gonna buy it when it's on Game Pass. And that
in terms of the NPDs, it was number 3 on Xbox and number 3 on PlayStation, but PlayStation has a larger user base, right?
Right.
So yeah, I mean, I played Outriders on Game Pass and I didn't buy it, but I think the argument that analysts use,
I did too, by the way.
I think the argument that analysts use, again, like, I think ultimately, I think it's one of those debates where it's like, the people who get like super passionate on either side are kind of, I don't know if I should call them stupid, but it's like you don't know and I don't know. So like why are we even arguing about, like the publishers know and Xbox probably knows, and there's probably different opinions there, but it's like
I think that the childish arguing is the problem. But
also
I think that this is the most interesting time in video game history to me. Like, I am so fucking excited about what's going on. Like, we're in a
yeah, I
transition
mean
phase here with the Xbox Game Pass and then the quality model that Sony has, and it's like, who's gonna cave? Like, will Game Pass go away? Probably not. Will
yeah,
Sony
I'll just
like go into a Game Pass model? I don't know. It's like, it's so fucking exciting, and I'm not here to shit on Game Pass, but I mean, like, I just feel like I can't deny that you and I both, we're both hardcore gamers. We didn't buy Outriders on Xbox. Like, we didn't.
yeah,
We went to Game Pass and did it. And like, it's, you can say, oh, it doesn't hurt sales, but I think it does. It's
but I wouldn't
evidential. We didn't buy the game.
yeah, but I wouldn't have bought the game. Like
I
if the
wouldn't
game
have
wasn't
either.
on if the game wasn't on Game Pass, I wouldn't have bought it.
I wouldn't
So
have
it
either.
didn't. Yeah, so it didn't lose the sale, right? Because we would have
Right.
had to have set no, but as in like we would have had to be like, I'm buying this game. I'm gonna buy Outriders, and then they say, oh, it's on Game Pass, and then I go, oh, okay, I'm not buying it.
Okay, are you
but
gonna
that's
buy
not what,
Halo
That's not
Infinite?
what happened. I'm gonna buy. I said it in chat. I'm definitely gonna buy microtransactions at the very least.
Oh, see,
So
I won't, and I'm not gonna buy it.
because if there's good skins and good cosmetics, and the multiplayer is good, of course I'll put money into that, right?
Right.
Like, so for me, it's like I'm happy to put money there, but
But
I
you're
mean,
not gonna purchase the whole game, right?
I don't know. I'm not going to at launch, but
Yeah.
I mean, it's different with Xbox themselves, right? Because they get the money from the subscription, right?
But
So,
let's put this on the
but
table.
it's like,
Let's
but
take
they're
Game
not,
Pass
but they're not.
Game Pass off the table. Would you buy Halo if you had to? Yes.
Yes, yeah,
But now
but
it's on
they're
Game
not-
Pass, so it's not going to be bought by you.
Yeah, but Microsoft aren't competing with themselves in terms of like game sales versus Game Pass, right? Like
Right.
they want you to subscribe to Game Pass. Like it benefits them more that I'm subscribed to Game Pass than if I would buy Halo, right? But anyway, the thing that I wanted to say
I don't know
ages ago now, ages ago I wanted to say is that the argument that people like, I don't know if you're familiar with Matt Piscatella. He's from the NPD group. He's like one of their like big analysts. He thinks that Game Pass doesn't hurt sales. He thinks that there's no evidence of Game Pass hurting game sales. And one of the main arguments that he has is that the marketing boost the game gets from Game Pass and the network effect of Game Pass makes up for the loss in sales. So basically, like what you're saying is true, and that less people on Xbox may buy games, or like I guess people that are interested in the game already might be less likely to buy it or whatever, but it's made up for by the fact that more people are talking about the game is being advertised more. Like, I talked about Outriders a bunch, I talked about it to friends, a couple of friends bought it on Steam, right, because they don't have an Xbox, or because the game didn't come to Game Pass PC as well. So I'm talking about the game, I'm posting clips about the game, and so that makes people who aren't interested in Game Pass or don't have an Xbox more likely to buy the game, if that makes sense. So it's like, and it's a essentially the argument is like, which one of these effects is bigger? Like, is the marketing and networking boost that a game gets from being on Game Pass, is that big enough to overcome the sales deficit from people that are subscribed to Game Pass never having to buy it? That's essentially like the crux of the argument, but
Right.
no one seems to really be having that discussion, right? Like no one is, and the problem is that there's so many intangibles that there's no way to adequately even there's never going to be like a definitive argument about that, because it will be something where I think that the service will probably work for some games and won't work for others, right? Like it will,
Yeah.
like maybe it didn't work for Outriders, but it will work for 12 minutes, right? Like maybe it didn't work for Outriders, but it will work for Back 4 Blood, right? Like maybe like some games will make less money and some games will make more money, and part of that will depend on the game and the marketing and lots of other things that are like outside of the control.
Right.
So that, I mean, that's probably my, like, I guess middle ground fence sitting, annoying take. Is that
It's
like
not
it?
annoying, not at all. It's interesting. This whole conversation is super interesting to me because it's something that it's never happened in the video game industry, and I love it. I'm not here to like say you're wrong, but I mean like it's hard for me to just be like, you were just talking about that guy who's like it doesn't. His opinion is that it doesn't affect sales, and I can kind of see that now, but it's still on my side. I'm like I just think it does. I do think it affects sales, and they talked about Square Enix talked about how they like just recently have made money back from the development cycle of Outriders. I feel like they almost lost money there. But you could argue, because we don't know the numbers, that it could have done worse. It could have done worse without Game Pass. But I don't know. I don't know. It's so interesting.
I think that Outriders would have been dead on arrival without Game Pass.
I do too.
I think no one was interested in that game. No one was interested in that game until the demo and until the Game Pass announcement. That's my take. But I think so. Square Enix, like, there's a mess with them and People Can Fly. Like, People Can Fly don't know how many copies the game has sold, and they've not received royalties for it. And then Square Enix said, when they talked about Outriders, they said it was a good decision to put it into Game Pass for player acquisition, is what they said. So they didn't say, so it's kind of, it makes like the debate continue forever because they've said like Game Pass was good for the game, but it was good for player acquisition. They didn't say it was good for the game for sales. They said it was good for the game for, so it's sort of like everyone arguing even more, right? Because it's like, yeah, it was good, but they haven't explicitly said it was good for sales. So it's like, so, it's almost like it never ends in terms of that. It never ends.
And I can't wait for the day that we find out what the fuck is going on. Where are the numbers? Give us the numbers.
No, I mean, yeah, Microsoft will never give numbers.
Sucks.
Yeah, they won't. They also won't. I mean, people seem to not believe this, but they're not going to give There's some things that they won't give numbers on, ever, in terms of like hardware sales and stuff like that. They just won't do it again.
I hate
even if they're on top, it won't matter. They won't give numbers because they
didn't they recently though?
Yeah, well, they won't give. Yeah, I mean, they didn't give numbers. They said they said the Xbox
selling.
Series console was the fastest selling console. People have estimated they sold 6.5 million to date, but that's an estimate and it's not from Microsoft directly.
I hate that, dude. Why can't they share the numbers?
Part of it is because so the reason they stopped was because Xbox One underperformed.
Yeah.
And but the other reason is that Xbox is like it's not a small part. It's kind of a small part of Microsoft as a whole.
It is.
So it's like they don't get that
small part.
They don't get that granular with like anything, if that makes sense. Like they don't go into like much depth.
They do. They give numbers for how many subscribers they're on Game Pass. So it's like they do, but they don't. But it's like just do it. Just do it. All of it.
Yeah, but they're pushing Game Pass, right? So they do it. They choose to do like what they want to. I mean, actually, the problem, you say that, but they haven't given numbers for Game Pass for like over a year, maybe. I don't know. I think they wanted to get numbers out to show that it's like viable and growing, and then they're like, okay, we're not saying anything again.
But then I wonder how many people unsubscribed like I did. Like maybe the numbers dropped and they're like, we're not confident to share these numbers again because there was a while there where I just wasn't playing anything on Xbox. I'm like, it's time for me to go. It's time for me to go. I have PlayStation games that I'm trophy hunting, and I'm not going to Xbox for a month or 2 or 3, and I'm not going to give them my money. And literally, I can't imagine that there wasn't, like, there had to have been more people who did the same thing I did.
I think the subs are growing because again, you have to, it's ridiculous. You have to do so much, like, deep diving into figuring this stuff out, but when the new Xbox is launched, they said, I think it was 70% of people who buy the new consoles subscribe to Game Pass. So if they're selling, right, and they're selling more consoles, right, like they're still, like, the Series X is still selling out as soon as they can get rid of it. So if that ratio is similar, like if that amount of retention in terms of like people that are buying the console are also subscribing to Game Pass, then the Game Pass numbers should be going up. Like it should outweigh the number of people unsubscribing, if people are unsubscribing. It's hard to tell if that's happening en masse. But yeah, I mean, I think that, so again, because of how annoying it is, right? And this is industry talk, but the PS Plus subscribers dropped in terms of like for the first time.
Did Sony announce
So
that?
it was in one of their financial reports that it was like,
See, I like
it
that.
was, I think it was quarter to quarter it dropped, but it's like it's over in terms of year on year because of like the pandemic like boost to gaming essentially has sort
Yes.
of died down a bit. So I think that probably, again, because it's just total guesswork, I think Game Pass subscribers are growing, but I bet if they announced it like 3 months ago or something, I think if you did a graph where you like plotted like the date versus the amount of subscribers, I bet the growth slowed down because of like the pandemic boost to gaming slowing down, if that
Yeah.
makes sense.
Yeah,
And
dude.
so I think they didn't want to release numbers because people would like go, oh, so in this month they had this many, in this month they had this many, and then you'd see like it start to like slow down, like the lines start to slow, and then they'd get like negative headlines like, you know, Game Pass slowing down, like, you know, and so they're probably like, okay, we don't want to do that. We're going to wait for it to stabilize and then like go on like a track again, because the same thing for Sony with PS Plus, like it went down based on like a 3 month window but didn't go down based on a yearly window.
Yeah.
And so on like the long-term scale, it's going to go up again and it's going to keep going up. And so it's probably a similar thing where it's like it probably didn't go down because Game Pass subscribers, there's already not that many of them, like in terms of the you know, PS Plus has like 100 million, and Xbox Live Gold used to have like, well, no, PS Plus is like 60 million or something, 65 or something around there. I'm not sure, I don't have the figures with me, but
Right.
Xbox Live Gold had something like 50 million years ago. Game Pass is at like 20 million or something, so I think it's probably still growing, but again, it's probably like it's slowing down, or it did slow down because of the same thing that's hit everyone, and then they don't want to release it because they're worried about that.
Dude, and I'm, you know, there's so many things that are upsetting about the pandemic, but like the inflated numbers, that it's a little bit frustrating for me because it's like I'm such a nerd for this gaming industry and like the numbers and everything, and it's like gaming grew so exponentially during the pandemic because there was nothing for people to do, and like extroverts are now at home and they have nothing to do, so they get into gaming. And now that like when the world opens up and the extroverts can go back out and party and do whatever, then they leave gaming behind, and then forever it's going to be like 2020 was a record year. And it was like, I'm sure at some point in the future, when, because gaming continues to grow and grow and grow, some point in the future it'll get high numbers again, and it'll be like, this is the all-time height of the gaming industry. And 2020 is not the all-time high, it's just inflated. And now that it's deflating, just like you said, with the probably why Xbox won't mention numbers is because the influx of the pandemic just shot everything. Like I think gaming is like the most, like it benefited the most from the pandemic.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to. I think what you say is going to happen sooner than maybe you think or people think, because I think that the pandemic boosted gaming and then it like fell off a little as things open up, but it didn't fall off to the extent of pre-pandemic levels. So it like, let's say it got boosted, like let's just say, I don't know, 30%. Then now the pandemic is, you know, quote unquote over or whatever. I mean, no one agrees on that, but whatever. That's a whole other debate. I guess.
That's a whole nother topic. We're not going to jump into that.
But yeah, it's like it might have like fallen a bit, but it's like fallen like 5%. So it like got boosted 30 and then fell 5, and it's like, so it's still ahead like 25.
Absolutely.
Well, not exactly, because if you do a fall after you add a percentage, it's not the same as, you know. I
Right.
get that.
In case anyone's
a maths, you know, nerd and wants to write in, I understand that 5% is bigger than the pre-boost 5% because of how numbers work.
Absolutely.
But still, it will be above where it was.
Dude, we got off on a tangent. We went from 12 minutes to let's argue about Game Pass. Oh man. All right, I think we're done with all of that. Let's just do the trophy and achievement of the week. I brought something that it's always going to be close to my heart. And that is Easter egg trophies. I freaking love these, and the London studio for PlayStation made the very first launch PSVR game, and it was called VR Worlds, and they just released a new game. Well, they didn't just do it. It was a year or two ago. Blood and Truth, this VR game, is their second VR game. And in this Blood and Truth VR game, they had a trophy called I Love That Game. And if you collect all the VR world statues, like the collectibles in the game, then number one, you collect the Easter eggs for their previous game, and the trophy is a reference that you love that game. And I'm just like, this is just such like it's like they just wear their heart on their sleeve, and they're like, you played our game, you know if you know. And that's really fun. And I was like, that's really cool. By the way, I don't have the completion in VR Worlds because there's one game in that game. So VR Worlds is like several different VR experiences all in one. And there's one where you're in a mech suit in space, and they fuck with gravity where you can like jump and turn like 90 degrees and land on a wall. And so you're still perfectly upright, but you're sideways. So it's so hard to explain, but basically because of the way that gravity works, you can jump sideways and then onto the ceiling, and you're still, straight up and down. But it's because of the transitioning between all of them, it makes me nauseous, and I can't get you have to like kill 15 enemies at one time, and I can't get to the part there without like having to lay down because I'm nauseous. Like, I want that completion so bad because I got the hardest trophy in the game, as people have said, and I just can't because nausea.
Sucks. Yeah, it's like your body's, you're like like something physical is literally stopping you from getting it.
Yeah, and I've tried over and over, and every time I'm like, dude, I'm gonna vomit. I'm gonna vomit, and I don't want to. I've never vomited VR gaming, and I don't want to. So I'm like, oh, sucks. But I just have to acknowledge how cute and nice that little Easter egg trophy is.
Yeah, it's a good choice. Mine is from my achievement of the week's from Psychonauts 2. It's Shared Regret, which is, there's something quite cute about Psychonauts, is that the enemies are like parts of people's minds in terms of like regret or doubts and things like that. So yeah, regret is an enemy that like, it's like a flying enemy, a slow moving flying enemy that holds like a giant anvil, like weighing it down. And to get this achievement, Shared Regret, you have to throw a regret's anvil at another enemy. So there's a telekinesis power you unlock early on, and it's always cool to use. I like in games, I mean, first of all, I like the name of the achievement. I like this idea of having like an enemy design that's meant to reflect like an emotion or a feeling. I think that's quite cool conceptually. And then also I like the fact that in a gameplay context you can use an enemy and a weapon that an enemy has as a weapon against other enemies. Like, take it from the enemy and then throw it at another enemy. It's stuff that's been done in games before, but it's always really satisfying to just turn the tables on enemies like that. So yeah, that one stood out to me this week.
That's pretty awesome. All right, and then we're gonna do a write-in. Another person wrote in about their proudest completions, and
nice.
Their name is Ben, and I didn't get permission to use their last name, so I'm not gonna mention their last name, but I'm gonna mention their top 3 games, and their number 1. Let's start with their number 3. Their number 3 is Mortal Kombat 9, and they said this game is full of BS trophies. The most notorious ask is if you have to win 10 ranked matches in a row, and that is some bullshit. So the fact that he did that's a very skillful trophy.
Yeah, that type of achievement, I mean, it's like the Fall Guys one, right, of like doing the winning 5 games in a row.
Dude, his number 2, Fall Guys, 5 online wins in a row. He says,
yeah, we didn't.
Enough said.
I didn't see this list beforehand, by the way, for the audience.
He said, enough said, and then goes on to talk about how there was a massive Discord server just boosting that trophy, where there was just a bunch of inactive people in a Fall Guys game, like lobby, and you could just jump in, and then you could just run past all the like non-playing movers or like non-playing players and win every time. And that's how people were boosting it. And he's proud of that one. And then number 1 is White Knight Chronicles, which is an old PS3 game, and it took him over 600 hours. He spent his final summer break going for that platinum and thought it was an okay game, but by the end of the journey was like completely over it. And I'm with him. I've had this happen on many games, on many occasions, and I was definitely one of my favorite JRPGs, if not my favorite, is Ni no Kuni, and I don't have the completion on it. It took me a long time to get through that game, and I want to go back someday and get the completion. I have it on PS3, but it's just like I just have to do that. I still have the save and everything, but it's just like long completions, and I didn't want to ruin it for myself, so I just didn't do it.
I love what you said there about like it's like classic like JRPG fans, right? It's like you played it for over 600 hours and it's an okay game. It's like why would you do that to yourself,
dude? It's like how it is on the PlayStation side.
You see that on like Steam reviews, where it's like someone will review like Counter-Strike or like Dota 2 or something. It's like they've played like 3,500 hours and they're like, bad game. They're like, it's all right. It's like how did you play it for so long?
I don't know, dude. It happens to me too. What's wrong with us? What's wrong with us when we do this? And I think that's gonna be it for this episode. Do you have any final thoughts, AJ?
No, I don't have. My head is completely empty. I have no thoughts.
Dude, we talked the hell out of this episode, man. We got like 2 hours and 3 minutes, which is gonna be cut down, so probably will be under 2 hours, but still, like, damn. All right. Well, I want to thank everyone for listening. Happy hunting. Peace out.
See ya.
Thank you so much for listening to Complete Edition. If you like the content, consider supporting us on patreon.com/completionclub. If you have any questions or would like to reach us, email completionclub@gmail.com. Thank you for listening to Complete Edition.